Hello and welcome to Excel Virtually Global 2020. Makes it sound like there's going to be one next year as well. Well, who knows in the current environment. Thank you very much to everybody who is listening in and listening to me ramble on here. My name's Liam Bastick. I'm an alcohol. Oh no, that's a different session. My name's Liam Bastick. For my sins, I've managed to be successful in being what they call an Excel MVP, although they call it Office Apps these days. So feel free to ask me about OneNote, PowerPoint, Word. I'll give you the same answer for all of them. No, nothing. But I'm here to show you I know nothing about putting on a conference either. So we'll see how we get through and muddle through. 55 hours. Can you believe it? Are you in for the long haul? Can you make it that long? I'm not even sure I can. We'll see what goes on. 64 presenters. Thank you so much to all the people who voluntarily gave you the time. We've got a lot of MVPs on board. We've got a lot of Microsoft people. We've got a lot of other industry experts out there as well. It's going to be a great time, and hopefully we're all going to learn a lot. I know all the MVPs, they're going to be listening to various sessions as well because we're all trying to pick up new tips and tricks. So thank you wherever you may be in the world, however the virus and the current economic downturn and all those effects may be impacting your life. Hopefully this will be something that just takes your mind off it for a little while, teaches you some new skills that you can put to use later. Everybody uses Excel at some point or another. We're going to talk about Power BI as well. So welcome very, very much to Excel Virtually Global. Look, as I say, Microsoft's most valuable professionals, or MVPs as they know, are technology experts who passionately share their knowledge with the community. And you can already tell from how I'm going on I'm trying to put a bit of passion in here at this time of day. Look, they try to be on the bleeding edge. They have an unstoppable urge to get their hands on the new exciting technologies and just tell the world about it. We try and communicate it there. So I'm sure a lot of you subscribe to a lot of our websites already. It's great to have so many of you here. When I recorded this video, there were over 500 people presenting, 500 people attending this particular session. This is great if we have you all on live, but you might be watching it recorded. Just a reminder, if you are watching this, most of these sessions will be recorded. We'll give the information about how you can get to them later. There will be a link and lots of details, and all the files that we want to download, they'll all be at the same site. So if the presenters forget to tell you, don't worry, it'll be there. We'll pass on instructions for the day. And myself and my team, that's Tim Heng, Jonathan Lau, Han Tran, we're going to be on from time to time. We are sort of emceeing this and trying to make sure it transitions smoothly from one to another. So if you've got any questions in the meantime, drop us an email and we will try and sort out your problems. Look, there's lots going on here. The topics we've got include auditing spreadsheets, charts, dashboards, data analysis, data types, dynamic arrays, Excel tricks and tips, twice, financial modeling, forecasting, maps, Microsoft 365, new functions and features, pivot tables, Power BI, Power Pivot, Power Query, presenting your data, spilled formulae, testing, timelines, developing solutions with DNA, .NET, VBA, Python, R, OfficeScript, and Office.js. And look, when I say all this, it's not all in English either. So I'm really looking forward to the sessions in Telugu and Mandarin in particular because I don't speak a word of either. Anyway, let's get on with it, shall we? Before I say anything else here, I just wanted to point out that I wanted to dedicate this entire session to Chris Smitty Smith. It's been a terrible time recently for us in the Excel community with the passing of Microsoft Excel team member and former Excel MVP Chris Smitty Smith. Look, if you absolutely no idea who he is, then you're unlucky because he truly was a lovely bloke with a great mind, an unassuming temperament, and a wry sense of humour. You probably know his work though. If nothing else, he was heavily involved in Excel helps. If you've ever been there and found the answer to your problem, well, Chris has been your man. Never to be seen there without his signature cap. Look, Smitty gave encouragement and advice to the entire Excel community, including PMs in the Excel team and Microsoft's MVPs alike. He answered, apparently, according to Bill Jelen, nearly 30,000 answers on Mr. Excel, for God's sake. That's just an incredible total. I was lucky enough to sit next to him at the MVP summits more recently, where he was an amazing character, both hardworking, unassuming, and laid back. Look, I recall last summit a fellow Excel MVP who will remain nameless, won't you, Roger Govia? He came across to our desk to say hello. He accidentally tripped and he spilled his water all over Smitty's brand new Surface Book 2. It fried it pretty much. Smitty, he just immediately stood up and checked whether or not Roger was okay, because he tripped and he said cared nothing for the hardware. Now I've got to be honest, if that happened to me, I'm not sure I would have done it the same. But that's why he was so well loved, and that's why we want to dedicate this whole thing to him. Just about. I'm not sure if everyone who's presenting here knew him, but most of us did. He was a great guy, and as I say, we are honouring his wishes as one of the charities that we're donating to here. So as well, so there's some cancer research, and there is Médecins Sans Frontières, the two main charities. Everything you've paid for this event, it's going out there. It's we are taking not a penny from this. It's all going back out. So thank you very much for contributing, and we really appreciate it. Look, as I say, Smitty leaves behind a young family with Cindy and his daughter Campbell, who are fiercely, fiercely proud of him. And I'd like to say thank you for letting me put his picture up and allowing you to choose which charities you go to. And I'd just like to say, I hope, Smitty, if you're watching from somewhere else, you look down upon us all with great comfort and think, oh my God, what are they doing? They shouldn't be doing it like that. You should be doing it like this. He's going to be missed. And we dedicate this whole conference to him. Right, onwards and downwards. Welcome to the first session. As I say, my name's Liam Bastick. I am going to be your host of the first one. Some of you may have seen that this was going to be a Microsoft session to begin with. Microsoft are here. They are going to be presenting a whole load of sessions for you. Unfortunately, we've had to jiggle the itinerary round. The itinerary is always kept up to date on excelvirtuallyglobal.com. Just look at the program tab. We'll have it there, and we'll keep reminding you of what the next slots are as we go. Instead of your scheduled first program, the first one up here, and there's not many changes to the program, this is just one that we've had to change, is going to be on dynamic charts. And as I say, I am Liam Bastick. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. For the past 30 years, I've been working in decision analysis, strategy, and corporate finance. That's posh words for mergers and acquisitions, valuations, and modelling, working for various consulting and accounting firms. I'm a published author and a fellow of several accounting institutes, and recognised both by CrimeWatch and Microsoft as an MVP. That's the most valuable professional. There's about 70 or so of us at the moment. I'm not quite sure because they won't tell us. So there's only 3 of us, in other words. So it makes it sound much more exclusive club if we say that, but I don't think that's true. And I think we've got Microsoft people here who tell me, no, you can't say that, Liam. These days, together with fellow presenter and MVP Tim Heng, who'll be presenting one of these sessions later on, we run the boutique firm Some Product, helping clients with exactly the sorts of things that everybody here is going to talk to you about. We can do all these things, as can pretty much everyone else. I'm not trying to do a sales pitch. I'm just saying we're all in this together. What I'm going to do today is dynamic charts. And this session is going to try and make sure I don't steal any of the thunder from people like John Peltier, who's like a god of charting. And there's also, I think, other people here. We've got Jordan Goldmeyer's going to be presenting on this. I think Hank Flutman's going to be talking about these things too. I was going to do something about best practice with layouts in this session, but I realized that Tim Heng was going to be covering something of this. So I've confined myself to some common problems of dynamic charts. And what I'm going to talk about in particular is extending ranges, hiding data, the dynamic labeling of titles, and the dynamic labeling of labels. Well, this isn't death by PowerPoint, so let's get on with it. Let's get going then. This isn't death by PowerPoint, this is death by Excel. I'm going to start off and explain how you should lay out data in a chart, at least from my point of view, about putting things together. And with that, I'm going to actually have some data. So I've got some sales for 2 months. And look, people spend fortunes on developing and devising forecasting software when autofill's been around forever. There you go, January to June, 10 to 60. And I can create a chart in seconds. I can click on the quick analysis tool, which I've got to say, a lot of people always say, how do you get rid of that thing? It's been one of the most popular pieces of feedback I've got there, but it can be useful because you can go in here and you can say, right, if I click the right button, I can go in here and say, right, I want to go to charts and I want to go to more and I want to pick a particular chart. Yeah, that looks good. Click OK and bang, in it goes. And there's other ways I can do it. Alt F1 is a keyboard shortcut unless you're on a MacBook, but if you're on a MacBook, well, you're on a MacBook, aren't you? Probably. This is Excel. Welcome for the first time for MacBook users. If I put this in here, I've got my sales for January to June. If I put July in here, and let's make that 100, nothing happens. And that's because of the fact we have to go and revise the data. So I right click on here, I go to select data, and I can go in here and I can go edit and I can go and change my data. Ooh, haven't got time for this. We've not come here for 55 hours to listen to me show that. So we don't do it that way. Instead, if you're preparing chart data where you might want to extend the ranges, think about using tables. And I don't mean those sort of tables. I mean Excel tables with a capital T. They've been around since Excel 2007 and they allow you to extend ranges. So if I highlight all this data or just click anywhere in here these days, I can go to Insert and up here on the top I have got Insert Table. Control T is the keyboard shortcut. I highlight this or just click on one of the cells, Insert Table, and this huge dialog box here, Create Table, comes up, and make sure it's picked up the whole range. It usually does. And it'll also decide whether or not your table has headers. Typically, it'll check that if it finds a change in data type between the first and the second row. So if one's in text and one's numerical, it tends to have it checked. And no, I can't find a default for having that one way or the other either. If I click OK, it's turned it into a table. Now, one of the things fellow MVP Ken Pulse is always going on about, which I totally agree with, is I wish at this point it prompted you to name the actual table because you may have more than one. The table is in the context-specific tab, Table Design up here. It's in the top left-hand corner up here. You can see here's the table name, and I'm going to just call it Chart underscore data. Don't put spaces in here. Space is an illegal character, not always a sick bird. Okay, so got it as chart data. Now if I go Alt F1 to create my chart here, nice and quickly, and I'm sure other MVPs will tell you other tricks for putting this in, and I can snap it to grid by holding the Alt button down and playing around and putting these things in here. If I put August in, and let's make that, oh, I don't know, 200, do you see how it automatically updates? That's pretty cool, don't you think? But it's better than that. I can also decide to go for more sales. And I'll just make that equal 50% times the cell to the left. Pretty cool. You see, that's the way I just roll. That's the way I model because I'm so lazy. I don't even finish my... Yeah, anyway. One of the things, if that happens, is notice that the actual legend disappears from the top. That's one of the things that annoys me. I'll have to put it back in. But notice, I do recommend, where possible, actually put your chart data in a table because then it dynamically extends. Now, there'll be other people give you other tips as well. That's the way I tend to do it with financial models, unless I'm creating things like rolling budgets or charts or something like that. But that's a story for another day. Okay, so that's the first example. I talked then about rolling budgets and charts and said that was a story for another day. Well, maybe I lied. Maybe I'm going to talk about that right now. So I'm going to create a rolling chart. That means I'm going to make it round and I'll push it down a hill or something. I don't think so. No, a rolling chart has so many periods displayed for a given point in time, and you could perhaps select, or in my case, I just wanted to do the last 12 months so I can keep it up to date. The whole point is if you're producing reports and summaries and things like that, you don't want to have to keep doing work. You want to be a lazy modeler, which means you're efficient and effective at doing things rather than perform lazy modeling, which means you have to do a lot of repetitive stuff, which means you have to do a lot of repetitive stuff, which means so let me show you. I've got 2 years worth of dates here. I've got the end date in here. And I'm going to put some sales in that I'm just going to make up. Now I could have turned this into a table, but I want to show you a dynamic array function, and others are going to talk to you about that. So I'm not going to go into that in great detail here. But I'm going to show you a magic trick with dynamic arrays, which is I quite like. So I have got 24 periods here. So I'm thinking of using the rand array function, which is in Microsoft 365, some versions at the moment, to generate a random number. Now you can just use rand between and do it that way to generate your numbers, or heaven forbid, if you're actually working as an analyst, you might use the real numbers. But I just thought I'd show you a little quirk while I'm here. So I'm going to use rand array, and you can see if I look up here at this wonderful syntax, it's got all these things. So it wants how many rows am I going to do it in? Well, it's going to be a total of 24 rows at the moment. I can make that a formula. My number of columns is going to be just the one. I'll just keep that, therefore I won't even mention it. My minimum, let's say, is 200, and my maximum is going to be 500, and I want it to be an integer, so I'll make it true. And there we go. I have got it in here. And the great thing is it spills. So once you type in this first one, it puts it down all of these. Now, if you're like me and you're testing data, what you often want to do is you want to copy and paste your data as values. Now, if I highlight this whole range and copy and paste as values, I don't think we'll have a problem. But I just thought, let me try it like this. So I went copy just the first cell because it might spill. And then I paste as values. So paste special values, Alt ESV or whatever you use there. Bang. I can generate a hash spill error in one cell. Magic trick, I thought. First magic trick of the day, how to create a hash spill error without any blockage. So that doesn't sort of work. So I've got my data back in here. If I highlight all the range instead and go copy and then paste as values instead, so it's not keep changing, this is just giving me some data to work with. Now, I could plot a chart out of all this, but I'm not going to, but I'm still going to follow my rule of turning this into a table. So I'm going to just go anywhere in here, and in English Excel, conscious I'm presenting to the world here, Control T. My table does indeed have headers. Click OK. And up here in the name where it's got it up here, let's go. I'm going to call this raw data. I'm nothing if not literal. People used to say, Liam, you've got a great sense of humour, but then I'd know they're lying. Okay. Anyway, you can fast forward this bit if you're watching it on recording. So I've got this here. This has now given me my actual name of my table, and I've got these two fields, date and sales. What I'm going to do now is have my chart data here. So I'm going to make this equal date, and then if I copy this across, that'll be sales. So I've just got my date and sales again. Always a good idea not to type text in more than once, because the fact is it just makes it efficient, and it's easy. If I swap it here, it will propagate through. Then I'm going to go down 12 periods. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I could have just seen where the December one was if I wanted to. And I'm going to type in here equals max for the maximum value. And I'm going to select this first column. Now, the great thing with this is we've seen already that tables will extend. So when I do that, it will give me the final date. And that is a serial number, 43830. So if I delete that, does that make me a serial killer? Fortunately, I'm not presenting for the whole 55 hours. If I was, then you might see that, oh, never mind, Liam. Let's just move on from him. So there you go. Let's turn this into a date. So I could just turn it perhaps into a short date up here. So do that. Keyboard shortcut, you could do Control Shift 3. We'll turn it in there as well. In fact, let's do that. Control Shift 3 turns it in like that. And then to actually move back a month each time, I'm going to go and use the EO month function, the old McDonald function. Old McDonald had a date, EO month. So end of month, this gives me, it has two arguments in it. Start date and months. Well, we've already specified the start date, and it's how many months from there do you want the end of the month to be. So I'm going to take this one here, and I want it to be 1 month previously. So that will give me then 43799, which I've formatted to the one above, gives me November, and I can pull this data back, and I have my last 12 periods. So if I keep putting more down here, so if I were to put in here 31 Jan 20, and let's make that 327, you'll see now it's gone to 31st of January 2020. Nice way of doing it. And I want to look up the data. Now, I think it's Win that's going to be talking about the ways of looking up the data and using that. I'm going to use a function he may not even mention, one of the older ones. People know quite well I hate VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP with a passion. Won't go on about that now because I don't want to steal Win's thunder, but people are surprised I like the lookup function, because lookup will look up data as long as the data is in ascending order. Now, for ascending order, it doesn't have to be strict ascending. So it doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It can be 1, 22333445. It can have duplicates because it says, as long as my data is in ascending order, find me the largest value less than or equal to what I'm looking for. So this is great for picking up things that may be beyond the table. Where do you always find data which you're looking up always in sequential order? Answer, in dates. You never, ever put your dates in alphabetical order, do you? I mean, has anyone ever asked you, what's the fourth month of the year alphabetically? Don't think so. So this is one of the things we need to sort out, is using the right function to look up at the right time, and lookup is great when you're looking up data that's in a time series. So I tend to use it. So I'm going to go here equals lookup, and it's saying the lookup value is this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll just anchor it on the column, and then I'm going to highlight the first column here. That's what I'm going to do, raw data date, and then I want it to return the sales by going here. And the thing is that if my data extends, so will this. And I've got my data here, and I can copy it down. Brilliant. This is what I'm going to use for my actual chart data. So I've got this here. So let's create a chart out of this. Very, very difficult again. As I say, I've got real experts in the on the event later. We've got people like, as I say, John Peltier, Boris Christoph, others coming to you later on. We'll show you much clever tricks than I'm showing. I'm just going to use Alt F1 and they can all cringe. I've got this wonderful chart here coming through, and I'll just put this over here. So I've got my chart data, and I'll just make that a little bit bigger. Lovely. And this is giving me these dates. Now notice that my months here are going through the month end, and my dates here, if you can see, let's just make this a little bit bigger for you, start on the first date, which is one of my little bugbears. So one of the things I can do in here is click on this, and in chart design I can go in here to the format side and click on format selection, and then for down here on my actual numbers down here, I'm going to change the actual specification down here in the pane. So let's go and have a look what I'm doing down here. So if I go down here for these particular dates, I might decide to put in here, why don't I just go, I'm going to put month, 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 YY down here instead, click add, and then we'll actually select this one in here, and it's actually putting in the month and year, so we don't notice the fact that it's always starting from the first, because that seems to be how these charts like to work. I'm sure somebody's going to tell us later on why it does it like that, but we've got those in here looking nice, and I've got my chart. Don't like these lines, just clear those off. Hey, and let's go to the design, and I get into a lot of trouble when I say things like this, but I'm going to have that here. I think they stand out better, those sorts of things like this. So I've got a nice chart with my data, and if I put more data in here, so if I put, for instance, it's going to be the 29th of February 2020, almost cut myself out, giving myself a leap year here, put that as 499, and this one will put the 31st of March. I can't speak English, it's one of the things here, 228 in here. If I now put this through, you'll see those have now been put in, and my chart is working dynamically. It's rolling. I have created a rolling chart. Now I want to put some clever things in here. So I want to put a bit of analysis in and make this look a little bit cleverer than it presently is. So I'm going to work out certain things. I'm going to work out here, what's the maximum sales? Very, very difficult, equals the max of this column here. So the answer is 499. My actual month that responds to, well, I'll use one of the new functions that's come out. I'm going to use XLOOKUP, which is, as I say, in the new versions, you can use index match, you can use VLOOKUP. No, you can't, because it's the wrong way round. Ha, ha, ha. Sorry, that's why I did it. You can use index match, you can use SUMIF, you can use other things potentially, but I'm going to use XLOOKUP and say, I am looking for this number in this column, and I want to return the corresponding value here. And that gives me 43,830, which again, I'm going to change to a date, Control-Shift-3, turns it into a date. So that's the whole thing here. And I can do other things if I wanted to, and I'm going to work out the standard deviation because I know this is what you've all come on board for. You want to know what's a standard deviation of my last 12 month sales. If you don't know what they are, it's okay. I don't care what it is. It's just a measure of volatility of spread. Jordan will tell me off saying, no, that's not quite the right definition, but it's okay. Trust me, I'm a mathematician, or I used to be, and I'll take away my license after giving a description like that. I'm going to use stdev in here. Oh my God, how many of them are there? Let's have a look. So if I start doing here standard deviation, I'm going to take it, assuming it's a sample, so I'll use stdev.s. And the great thing is if you don't know what you're doing, it just wants the data anyway. So I'm just going to highlight this data here and put that in. And that's giving my sales here. And I just want that to, don't want any decimals. 101 is fine. Great. What's my average? Let's do that while I'm at it as well. Equals the average of all these. Bang, 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 bang. And that gives me 83, and I'll format this the same, and I'll just use the format painter this time to do it. Bang. Okay, I'm going to write some text down here, which is going to be what my month is and things like this. So I'm going to go here, equals, using the equals open speech marks, because I'm going to have a formula, sales for the last 12 months ending, and then I'm going to put in here a space, and I'm going to sellotape this, or I'm going to connect it with an ampersand operator. So you could have used text join, you could have used concat, you could have used concatenate. I like the operator because it's just one thing to type and I can't spell concatenate. So I'm going to put this in here and I'm going to click on that. And it says sales for the last 12 months ending 31st of March 2020. Oh, 43921. Ah, that's okay. I'll just change it to a date format. So if there's one keyboard shortcut you need to know in Excel, if there's only the one you need to know, it's the one for formatting cells, and that is Control 1. So if I put Control 1 in here, that brings this up here, and I'm just going to say, right, I want that to be just MMMYY like I did with the other thing a minute ago. So I'm just going to go Custom and type in here MMM space YY, and you'll see up here it will. Oh, drat, it doesn't. Because it's not a number. It's a mixture of text and number. So number formatting doesn't work. So how do I format a number when it's part of text? I have to use the text function. So the text function requires two arguments. So I'll put in here text. It needs, if we look at this up here, the value, and then it wants what you want to format it as. And it has to be in speech marks because, like gravity, that's the law. So I'm going to put in here MMM space YY, close speech marks, close brackets. That's a format cell D13 as text, but give it the appearance of a 3-letter month and a 2-digit year. Right, so if I do that and press enter, I get sales for the last 12 months ending March 20. See? Then what I need to do is I need to total it. So I'm going to sum all my sales. So I'll put this here, total, and I'll go here, equals the sum of all these. So I've got all this data. Now you would do this all tidily in your spreadsheet, but I'm just going around, so it's 4,052. So I'll go here. So then I'll add some more. So assuming you got more than $1 sales, I think I can actually put the R in here, and then I'll use the text function again. So let's go back to it this time, text, and it's going to be the total this time of the 4,052. And I'm going to actually have this, I'm going to assume most of us are in dollars, and I'm going to go hash, comma, hash, hash, 0, which is number formatting for put a number when you need to, the hash, and 0, put 1 at the end for definite with a 1,000 separator. So if I do that and press enter, I get here sales for the last 12 months ending March are 4,052. And then I can go a little bit further and go, okay, let's put an ampersand in, and we'll have a comma with a maximum of, and then ampersand, and we'll just keep going here. Text again, this, and we'll put it in dollars. Hash, comma, hash, hash, 0, close speech marks, close brackets, and ampersand, and then in, and we want to know which month that was. So ampersand, text, and we'll go here, open brackets, And then I'm going to go and put this month here and go MMM space YY. Close speech marks, close brackets. Let's see what happens. We get, let's make it a bit over here, sales for the 12 months ending March 20 of $4,052 with a maximum $499 in December 19. And if I had more time, I might also put in about the standard deviation and average. But you get the idea, don't you? Now, I want to have that as my commentary for my actual thing up here. And it's really easy. I just go into my chart title up here and you just go to the formula bar and you equals and I click on this down here as long as it's on the same thing. How cool is that? A lot of people don't seem to know this, and this is how I used to prepare reports. I used to have to do this report where I had to once a fortnight create this report for selling all these vehicles. And the first time I did it, it took me 6 weeks as I learned the ropes. And my boss told me, Liam, you're useless at this. You need to be much, much better. And then he said your predecessor could do it easily within 2 weeks. I said, judge me on the next one. The next one came up and I did it in 5 minutes because I just automated everything. If there's one thing I hate, it's repetition. If there's one thing I hate, it's repetition. Yes, I know I did that joke before. That's the point. Do you see how I've put in here dynamic titles? I've created a dynamic chart, and so what I can do is I've got this all nicely lined up on here, and I've got this various data, and I can put these elsewhere. Now, one other thing on this while I'm going through is, do we actually keep the chart data on the same sheet as the charts? Now, I'm sure various Microsoft people and other Excel experts and MVPs are going to tell you different things. I find as a model auditor, one of the problems is if you keep your chart data on another sheet to your actual chart, the problem can be how people copy it, because you may find that if you have it on 2 sheets, depending on how people copy it, future charts that are copied will still link back to the original data, which I find a bit dangerous. Therefore, I like to keep the chart data and the charts on the same page, but we can always hide them. And when I say hide, I might go and highlight these columns here and use either Alt Shift right arrow, or I can go to the data tab and go to group, and either way it groups it up. And I can also go down here and I could actually go and group this data so we can't see this as well. So Alt Shift right arrow will do it again. Well, it would do normally, it doesn't want to in this case. It's my software recording. That is, it's grouped. Now, there you go. I'll just group that. I'll group this. And there you go. That's what our chart looks like at night. That didn't work so well, did it? So what went wrong here? Let's expand. It doesn't like the data to be hidden. So I've seen people keep the data visible as a result. If you don't know this trick, it's very simple. You just right click on your chart and you go down here to select data, and it brings up your good old dialog box here. And in here you go down to the bottom left hand corner, hidden and empty cells. And what I want to do is this. I still think this should be a default of checked. Show data in hidden rows and columns. Check. Click OK and OK again. Then if I come back in here, I can actually go through and I can group this and I can group that. I have my data here. I can even take the grid lines off, view, and we'll take the grid lines off. I can start getting pretty and go in here and say, right, I want to actually format this in some way. So I want to format my chart area, my border. Let's round the corners because I seem to like that. And my shadow, I like a bit of shadow, which everybody tells me you shouldn't do. That's why I do it. And I have my first chart. Isn't that pretty cool? And the fact is, I can put on more data. So if I go back into my data here, so if I just go back and expand this again, so I've got my data up here and in here. Let's put in now the 30th of April. And I'll make that, let's say 577. What will happen in here? If I expand all my data, where's my data gone? So I put it in the wrong place. See, I'm getting confused by my own stuff. If I go through, let's put it in the right place now. I put in here. I was wondering why it wasn't updating. 30th of April 20, and we'll put 577 here. Then we see it's updated and it gives me new data. And again, I can just collapse all this and I still have my chart automatically updating. And the great thing is that I can start making copies of this. So I could actually go and have others and go, right, I'm going to go here, Control C. Before you know it, you can have lots of different charts, paste. You can imagine these different sheets. Before you know it, you're starting to get a dashboard together. Pretty cool, don't you think? You can copy these because they'll link back to the other chart and they'll be on the same sheet as the data. It's a nice way of creating dashboards in seconds. I'm not saying you should do this rather than Power BI. I'm just saying sometimes we have to do it in Excel. We still have to go old school. So that's looking at rolling charts, dynamic chart titles, or in here we've also looked at what happens about hidden data, and we can also put a commentary in at the top. I think that's pretty cool. I've got one more thing to show you. The final thing I wanted to show in my little session of Tour de Charts was actually looking at creating a chart like this. So I've got here example data. I've got some sample data here. You can see I've even got the dancing ants around this because I want to show you that if I were to actually go and format painter and do all of these cells, do you see that format painter has actually worked and given all these numbers this particular format? Hang on a minute. What's it done? I've got negative numbers below -1 in a percentage to 2 decimal places. I have got 0 as a dash. I've got negative numbers that are less than 1,000 as minus, and then whatever the number is. Between 1,000 and a million, it's showing the first 3 digits and putting a K. After minus a million, or rather less than -1 million, it's putting it in brackets and putting an M. And then for positives, I've got millions in blue, the decimal point, and I've got my thousands with 2 decimal places and K and so on. Well, hang on a minute. How do you do all that in one cell? What did I do? And then if I'm going through that, look at my actual chart. I've got -50%. I've got all these particular labels, and it's showing all these different formats too. Well, how do you do that in a label? And if I change it, if I change all these to -50%, they all become -50%. If instead I make everything 3.8 million, they all become 3.8 million. You see how this is going on? Now, if you're wondering, well, that doesn't look too particularly exciting, if you've ever tried to work with data labels in Excel, it doesn't really work like this. Let me show you a problem if you do seem to figure out how to do it in a table that often happens in practice. Here's a version I did earlier, and in this one I cracked how to actually get the formatting right, and I put my labels in, and I thought I got everything working and it all seemed to be okay. And I've just got the positive and negative percentages in this one. But if I change all these to positives, look what happens to my chart. Do you see some of the labels go missing? And similarly, if I make them all negative, other labels go missing. And this is a known problem in Excel that's been around forever. It's not seemed to be something that Microsoft has been in a hurry to actually change. I'm not saying they won't fix it. I don't think it's high on their priorities. And given some of the exciting stuff out there, I agree. I don't think it's necessarily the thing that they should be looking at next. But it is frustrating for those of us who do want to put charts together like this, where you're not even looking at putting it in. We've got this labeling problem in. So I just want to point out there's really 4 problems we're trying to overcome here. When we try and put this challenge together, the first thing is you need to understand how you can create multiple number formats in Excel, never mind in a chart data label. Then we've got to actually create the basic chart. Then I need to create the formatting in the data labels, realizing that custom number formatting won't even work and conditional formatting isn't even allowed. And then I need to make the solution robust enough to cope with saving the file and reopening, which is this last problem, because that's when it all goes wrong. It works fine until you close it and reopen again. And that's the issue. So given this is kind of like a thing off to the side, I'm not going to do this in full detail because this would take me a good 20 minutes plus to do it. I'm going to do the thing. Here's what I did earlier. The trick in all this is understanding number formatting and understanding the limitations that appear to be prevalent in number formatting and how to get around it. So here's a number I came up with earlier, just came up with it randomly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. I'm going to go equals minus the cell above. Then I'm going to add them together, alt equals sums them up, and then I'm going to put the word dog afterwards for my dog test here. So I've got positive, negative, 0, and text. Now, I'm not going to go through all the principles of number formatting. I'm running out of time very shortly, but I do have these particular things I want to show you that basically when you put this in, you can actually do number formatting one of two ways. You can actually distinguish between positive, negative, zero, and text, or you can apply two conditions and then everything else. So it's like a nested if. If this, then do that. Otherwise, if this, do that. Otherwise, do all this. That's it. So you've got these different scenarios, and both sorts of number formatting are supported. So for instance, in here, I could do positive, negative, zero, and text. And the way you do that in most variants of Excel is you say, okay, well, the first thing it wants then, if we're going to specify all of them, is I'm going to type in square brackets blue to make it all blue, the numbers. And then I'm going to put hash, comma, hash, hash, zero. That means if I look at this here, it's saying, right, I want you to put a number if you need to. Well, that's what a hash means. And a zero means not put zero, put a number at the final one, so at the unit level. And the comma means put it in as 1,000, a million, a billion, trillion separator, etc. Then at the end of that, I'm going to put underscore close bracket, which means make space for a close bracket. Don't put it in, but make space for one. Then the semicolon for my regional setting of Excel is the delimiter that distinguishes, well, if I only put one in, it's between non-negative and negative numbers. So that would be before the semicolon would be positives and zero, and after the semicolon would be negative numbers. So at this point, I'm going to make my negatives red, and I'm going to put them in brackets, hash, comma, hash, hash, zero. And that's it. Now, if I put a second delimiter in now, then it becomes positive, negative, zero. So, okay, so I'll put my zero in and I'll do green and I'll put that as a dash. So I could put that in speech marks, a dash, but something that a lot of people don't know is the backslash means next thing is text. So that's another way you could do it. In fact, with a minus sign, you don't even need to do that. And then I'm going to put underscore close bracket to make space for a close bracket again. And it looks a bit like a smiley face. And then I want another thing here. So now it goes positive, negative, zero, text. And I'm going to make my text yellow. Now, not all colours could be specified in text. There's only a few that can be, but you have got 57 colours altogether, colour 0 to colour 56 altogether. So if I press that, I've got this in here. And I'm going to take this and just copy it. Then if I go back to, if I go back to my numbers here and go Format Cells, Control 1, I can go in here to Custom. And I'm just going to copy that whole thing in here. And what it will do is it can't show the color, but it shows that it is actually putting it in with the commas in at the 1,000, the million, and so on in there. So we've got that in here. Once I've done that, I can click OK. And lo and behold, I've got my numbers with my yellow dog. Shame it's not purple. I could have said it was Prince's dog, but there you go. So that's one way of doing it, and it allows for 4 different circumstances: positive, negative, zero, text. There is another format, and that is you can do condition 1, and you specify what it is in here, and then you put your formatting in, so whatever that might be, and then you do your next one, which would be condition 2, and then you put your formatting in again, and then it's everything else. That's it. So you've got these 2 conditions. That's the other way you can actually do it. So what I could do is go, if it's greater than or equal to a million, so 3, 4, 5, 6, I might decide that it's going to be hash, comma, hash, hash, 0. So that's it, putting the 1,000 separator in. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in OK, 0.0. And then I'm going to put 2 commas in, which shows it to appear. The first one is it would appear in thousands. It doesn't divide it by 1,000, just makes it look like. Second one actually makes it go by a million. And in speech marks, I'll put an M. Then I will actually put my semicolon, put my second condition in, which is going to be greater than or equal to 1,000, let's say. And I'll make that hash, comma, hash, hash, 0.00. So 2 decimal places this time, and make it a K. Otherwise, I want it to be blue and just general. So do that, click OK. So if I take this number formatting And so if I copy this here, and then I just apply it to this one in here, so format cells again, and just type it in here, what will actually happen is it shows me as 1234.6 million. If I instead go 12345, it will show me as 12,345. Because I forgot to put in the comma here. There you go. Now, when that happens, let's just go back in here and change it. It's no big deal. So I'll just go back in here and I'll put my comma in there. So that's what that does. It's just effectively divides it by 1,000. And you can see it still adds up to 0 going through. But if I put 6 in there, it's now 6 and it's blue. It's not lining up with the brackets because I haven't made space for it, but you can see I've got these conditions. This is two ways I can work with number formatting, and that's part of the idea of what I've done. So if I go back to my example here, you can see I've actually got, well, more than 4 different specifications. So how did I do this? Especially when I took the first format painter here and actually applied it to all of them, it still worked. I'm not cheating here. So what's the trick? How have I got around it? Well, to start off with, if I go format cells, control 1 in here, you can see that what I've actually done is I've just put in positive numbers as general, negative numbers in red as general, and then I've got a dash and text is just generally formatted as well. That's what this means here. So I've just put this in like this. Well, that's specifying percentages and things like that. How have I done the rest? Well, I've cheated. What I've then did was I've actually applied conditional formatting. So I've gone in and what I've done is gone on the Home tab and I've applied conditional formatting, and you'll see if I go manage rules in this cell, I already have 3 types of conditional formatting in here. I put one if the cell value is less than or equal to minus 1,000, another one if it's between minus 1 and 1, and another one if it's greater than or equal to 1,000. So I'm not going to go through all of these. Let's say if I just go between minus 1 and 1, for instance, and I just go in here and edit the rule, you'll see that what's happened is the cell value is between minus 1 and 1, and the format I've applied is I've been crafty with my percentages about making the blue for positive ones and negative and red with brackets for the negative ones, and for the actual 0 I just want a dash. And I've done something similar with the others. So I've applied conditional formatting with number formatting, and that means I can apply more number formats to one cell. Crafty but clever, unlike me. I'm just crafty. Then I've compiled my chart. So if I look here, here's something I prepared earlier. I produced some tables. And I've got my positives come out here. So if this is greater than 0, it's going to take this number. If it isn't, it's just going to put NA, which means to a chart, just disregard it. I've done the same with negatives and with zeros. And that is what I have used to populate this chart. So if I go in here and select data, you will see that what I've done, my positives here, if I edit, they're going to go and select this column here. The negatives are going to pick this one here, and the zeros are going to come on the last one. So that's what I've done. So that's how I created my positive series, my negative series, and my zeros, which are sort of just a bar there. Great. But I wanted to get the data labels as well. How did I do that? Well, to get the data labels, you have to do it for each series. There's 3 series here, remember. So what I would do is, let's just put the chart up a little bit closer here. Right click on here, and I can actually go in here and bring in my data labels, or just when I've got on the chart here, there's the positives, I can click on here and say I want data labels in here and specify where I want them to go. And I wanted them to go outside the end, which is what I selected, and it put them in. But the trouble is with data labels, if I actually format these data labels, let's just bring this back here so it's back in, just hidden it over here. If I go here and format this particular selection, you will see that when we got the numbers, we can only apply general formatting. And what I've done is I've not even bothered. If you look down here, I didn't even bother to try and do it. I just linked them to the source. Well, how did I do that? Well, the data labels, if I look at it, where these are actually linked to, I decided that they were going to be a value I would put in. I've linked them instead to here. These particular cells, positive, negative, and 0. And I've used the text function again. We looked at the text function earlier, remember? So if I go back up to this little monster, I've got an if statement in, so I've got all the conditions I like about how I am specifying my number formatting. And you've got this file to have a look at and see how I put it together afterwards. And it's because it's text, and I'm bringing it in that way instead. So how I actually brought my text in when I actually put it in was, well, I brought my data labels in and thought, yep, that's all well and good, and I put these values in. I realized that I actually took, if I use the values from cells, selects the ranges rather than values, the chart will actually generate just as we require. So we're using those cells to the right here instead of the actual numbers, because these are text, can't plot the chart to it. And that would put all the formatting in as I want it. So it would look nice and cool. But I would still have the problem with actually the data labels, that when I change these numbers afterwards, they wouldn't work. And that's a glitch in Excel. So how did I overcome that? Let me explain. The answer is I cheated. Now, we're celebrating a lot of Excel and Power BI experts, both MVPs, non-MVPs, and also Excel PMs and Power BI PMs as well from Microsoft. And thank you for everyone for coming along. I also want to celebrate, as I say, some of the people that can't be with us, former MVPs in particular. And I want to name a past Excel MVP, Rob Bovey, who came up years ago with something called the XY chart labeler, which actually gets around some of the problems with some of the chart labels that you encounter, which have yet to be fixed. So if you go to his website, www.appspro.com, and you follow the URL link here, and look, I will put this in the notes that will accompany this particular session. You can download both for Mac and for Windows a chart labeler where you actually create your actual labels in here, and then it will actually work. It means I can go back to this, I can shut this down, and it will be fixed. So sometimes you have to think outside the box, which is what I've done here. I couldn't get the formatting to work properly. I only had so many, so I tried conditional formatting. That works fine for my box, but it doesn't work fine for actually showing the labels. To do that, I had to convert them to text and then color them in accordingly for positives, negatives, and zeros, which is why I had my helper table and a helper table. So I put those in and then I hid it behind here. Great. But then I knew that when I closed it and opened it again, there was still going to be a problem. And that's why I created the labels, not by going here and clicking on this and going, right, I want to add them here. I actually used that add-in and put them in, which I'm not going to waste my time showing you here, but it's a very simple thing to use. Look, I'm out of time. I hope you enjoyed this session. Let me just remind you what I was doing, because I've forgotten. This session, which was a substitute for what was originally going to come here. Apologies, I'm presenting twice in this. This was dynamic charts, and we looked at extending ranges using tables. I showed you how to hide data. I looked at the dynamic labeling of titles, and at the end, even it's a bit involved and cheating, the dynamic labeling of labels. Okay, so that's all I have time for. After this video finishes, I'm happy to take a few questions at the end, so please just stand by. I'll come and deal with a couple of those before our next session. I just wanted to remind, though, it's time for some evaluations. At the end of each session, we would love it if you would actually be so good as to give us some feedback, all positive, of course. No, but we think we might do this again in the future. Who knows? You see the bit.ly link, or you can use the QR code here. We would be delighted as an event organizer here. It would be great to get all your feedback as to what you enjoyed, what could have been better, and so on and so forth. That's not the only thing here. Microsoft Excel team is seeking research participants as well. Apparently they love hearing from their customers, and they would love your involvement so that you can help shape the future of Excel. If you're willing to be contacted and to provide feedback and participate in future research studies, please sign up. Again, you can get it through the aka.ms link or the QR code here. So please, we'd be grateful for both the evaluation for the particular session and for this. And we'll be showing these throughout the day and the night and the day and the night as we go through our 55 hours. Well, that's almost 1 hour down, just 54 to go. As I say, I hope you enjoyed this session. My name's Liam Bastick. If you didn't enjoy it, my name's Tim Heng. I'm going to be around now to answer some questions, but thank you for bearing with me through this first so professional video. Everyone else's videos are much better than mine. I've done it as a video, not because I decided to get some sleep, but because of the fact I was just nervous something might go wrong in my hour, and we have to keep everything to time. But all of this material will be up on our web link very, very shortly. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll take any questions now.